Hello, everyone. My name is Daha, and I'm an admin over here at Brainstorm School. And here we have one of our latest instructors, Ridell Apellanes. Ridell is a senior concept artist at VR Royale. He's also worked as an illustrator in tabletop games, as well as in animation as a background designer with Titmouse on Vox Machina and many, many other projects. What you may not know about Riddell is that he was a former Brainstorm School student, worked his way up to admin, and now on top of being a working professional, we are very, very lucky to have him teach with us in one of our latest courses, VR Sculpting for Environments. Riddell, would you like to tell us a little bit about your class?
Cool. Yeah. So my class is obviously you said it VR for environment design, and for that I'm still working out the syllabus a little bit, but the goal is to be like jumping into VR week one to so everyone can try it out, and throughout the course of the class we'll just work on like not like big portfolio projects, but like mini enclosed like exercises, like designing a prop, designing and then designing like the corresponding like environment for it. And part of it is like um, part of it is just to like explore a new way of working since VR has been around for like a couple years now. Like even back in maybe like 2016, I was seeing or
Yeah,
20
a little bit ago, right?
yeah yeah I was like seeing people like my main inspirations for like getting into VR were like Finian McManus. He does some like incredible work, and then Armand Serrano, who like they both use it for environments, but they use it in very different ways. And then I like VR in particular, like Adobe Medium, because since the tool is kind of boiled down and distilled to like simplified like characteristics, um, it's not it's more intuitive where it feels like I'm like drawing in 3D as opposed to when I'm in like Blender and I'm like hunting around menus. And granted, it's like once you learn Blender more, like stuff gets faster and easier, but I like the direct translation of like I'm if I do this with my hand, there's like a stroke that appears in front of me
It's
or like a
nicer
ball of clay.
coordination, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Would you be able to talk a little more about like the advantages of VR, do you think?
yeah, yeah. I think let's see. There's like a couple that I feel on like a personal level, I feel like even if you don't end up using it a lot in your work, like at the company I work at right now, a lot of it is just like high fast paced, like get this done, get this done, get this done. But the advantage I feel like VR gives is like you get to put yourself in the environment. You like get to walk around and like look around at like stuff. And I feel like when I'm in VR and it's like I've done it enough to an extent where it kind of transfers to when I'm outside of VR. It's like you make little decisions like, oh, is this rock tilted a certain way, or is this like fence post like tilted from just being outside for so long and like the ground's like moved around underneath it. So there's stuff like that you kind of feel when you're inside of VR as opposed to like when you're just like sitting in front of Photoshop doing your orthographics and like yeah, you end up with something a little more organic, and you get like a 3D model that you can pass off to people like in the case of in the case of like some of my influences, like Armand would say in his class, like he can give his client like a tour of the inside of this like of whatever environment he's designing, or especially if it's a spaceship where you design the exterior and then you can easily carve out the interior and then zoom in and then walk around and give someone like a guided tour. And then that's useful for like specific getting specific layout or like proxy models, and then you can hand it off. It's like potentially useful by storyboard artists that can plug it into Blender and then animate or like board out inside there. So it's
Yeah,
like
I
it
can
plugs.
imagine. Yeah, I can imagine that making it just a tad easier, especially in like in in a very fast-paced sort of work environment.
Hmm.
Um, when so you've been doing environments for a while, how did that sort of, I guess your experience, how did that transition to using VR? What did that
Hmm.
sort of been like for you, that process?
Yeah, so as a student, I kind of gravitated towards environments just because like for me, every time I try to learn anatomy, it always ends up being that like really strict and stiff like kind of thing. So when I started gravitating towards environments because it's like a tree is gonna like you can make mistakes on a tree and it'll still be fine or something. And so for a while I was doing just the 2D way of doing environments, but then when I so a little bit of background on me, I started going to Brainstorm like middle of 2018, and that was after like a long rut of trying to like self-teach myself from home, but all throughout that time it was like bogged down by I would bog myself down with like games and distractions and other things that weren't just like spending that time to focus in. And so I started going to Brainstorm, and eventually at once COVID hit, like we went fully online, and that's when I became an admin. And that's when I started like getting a little bit of money. And so that's when I was like, okay, screw it, I'm gonna buy this like VR headset and try it out. And
Oh.
from there it's like not smooth sailing, but things started to happen because of that. Like my company actually found me because of like that one piece that got front page of ArtStation.
We can
And then from
post it
there,
right here. Yeah.
yeah, just like right, like
Float
this
it
one,
around. Yeah.
rune stones or whatever, rocks.
Oh.
Yeah. But just that like 2D, 3D integration also was just kind of like this was let's see. It was also just around the time that like Blender started like picking up in popularity, and like I still use it pretty simply since um even though even I feel like I would categorize myself as a hybrid since there's some people that like
Hmm.
fully do 3D and there's
Right.
some people that only do 2D. And so like right now where I'm at in my like artistic journey is like coming back to the 2D and trying to get tied together some loose ends and stuff, but being able to harness 3D for your in your workflow and for like how you think is really important.
I 1000% agree. As far as integrating that 2D and 3D together, what sort of foundational skills do you think are essential to creating that perfect blend and creating the quality that you've created within your VR work?
Yeah, I think let's see. So I think when you look at like a raw render, you still have to be able to say to yourself, hey, how can I make this better? Like in terms of, and it kind of just goes back to like the 2D and yeah, the 2D skills of like drawing and painting where it's like, okay, if I can adjust the design of this object or if I can, the lighting looks like this right now, but if I can value group like these things together, then I get a better read. Or if, and so a lot of it still goes back to like 2D and kind of developing your taste. And I feel like part of how I practiced that was in like a practical sense was just doing like plein air a lot. Like I like doing plein air on my phone. Like I think I showed you this before, when we were in
Oh
class, but
yes, we
bought
could.
that like folding phone. So my
Yeah,
kind
freaking
of like
cool.
progressively, yeah, and I think that's about that too with like accumulation and just progression where you can start small and then as you refine your taste in terms of like the way that you work, your workstation also kind of progresses too. Like I used to finger paint on like $100 phone, and then I leveled up to buying like the Note 8 off of Amert with like the stylus, and then now that I have you know more money, I just dumped a bunch into a new phone that could potentially like open up a couple more options. And I feel like it was like that for I feel like it was like that for VR also, where you go from drawing on scrap paper, like you buy the like $10 copy paper, 500 sheets, and then you buy like a Wacom tablet, and then some people start out in Photoshop and realize they like Clip Studio Paint more. It's so a lot of it's refining your personal like taste and what you want. Yeah,
I
something
definitely
like
think
that.
so. What kind of advice would you give to students that are trying to, I guess, like get to that point, like refining their personal tastes and all? Any
Hmm.
advice or tips you'd give?
Yeah, I think trying stuff, yeah, because you gotta try stuff to know what you like, to know what you like, but also know what you don't like. Because like for me personally, if I'm in Blender all day and I'm doing something that isn't design or shape oriented, and I'm like I could potentially like download a bunch of kitbash 3D things and knock on them, what they do is like really awesome. But just for the personal way that I like working, it's I want to do something different. And so that realization of I want to do something different has led me to the way that I like working right now. But it also has like given me kind of a diverse palette of like if you throw me into something, I can figure my way around. Like even on my portfolio, it goes from like paintings to line drawings in like fantasy to sci-fi to high fantasy type settings, and like and it's like that at work too, where one week I'll be working on like realistic thing of like lady doing something to like I don't know how specific I can get with like the client list, but it jumps around a lot at work. Like one week will be something stylized, another week will be something realistic, one week will be storyboards, one week will be matte paintings,
Right.
and so like I have to move around a lot, and um, if I didn't have good keystones for that kind of for each of those like different styles to like reference off of, and if I didn't have my own sense of design thinking of like, oh, okay, we're designing as a generic example like a forest, and this is kind of something that I would try to get the students in my class the first like run through to go through is like, okay, we're making a forest. What kind of forest is this? Is this like, is there snow? Is there rain? Is it a jungle? Is there a lot of animals? Is it dead? So then that like line of questioning kind of leads you to design decisions as opposed to like um or what was it that line of questions leads you to certain design decisions, and it kind of creates something unique when I throw in like sometimes it's my sense of humor that's like if I throw a little bit of that in there, you get something weird. Like for a class I'm taking, I'm designing like giant eggplant monsters
Oh,
or
yo.
something, and so then so like stuff like that, like your sense of humor or your understanding of like history or even like people that I like really respect people that can kind of go like deep inside themselves and kind of pull out a little bit of the like more like cerebral stuff. Because I'm kind of not at that level of cerebral, kind of
That
a
part is
monkey.
hard.
But yeah,
It's difficult. Going back to your class too and tying all that together, like what
yeah.
kinds of students would you encourage to take your course?
I think anyone that's curious about VR or just environments in general, because one, I want to be able to tailor the feedback, um, and two, because it's the type of thing where since the tool is simplified down to its basic parts, um, there's not one way to do something. So even if someone advanced comes in with like their preconceptions of like, oh, if I do this in Blender or 3D Code, I can do it like this, but in VR, I could just grab a cylinder and just pull up the line tool. But then even someone beginner might find some new way to do something, and it's fun to like, I do this with my friends when we play games where it's like we all do our own thing and then come back together and kind of just talk about like what we do and what we do differently or like what builds we're doing. And
Right.
so, and I think the gradient is pretty open for that because the tool is intuitive too, where like if someone is just getting a grip on understanding stuff in a spatial sense, they can still just use the cube and make like something. And then someone more advanced can also start working with like going from design to 3D asset to staged and lit staged staged and lit render, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
so
I think that
check it
absolutely
out.
makes sense. Check it out. Check out Riddell's class. No,
Links in
seriously,
the
like,
description. Yeah.
yeah, link in bio. Of
Mhm.
course.
Sure.
Like, what
Sure.
overall, like, what do you want your students to get out of your class? Skills wise, any
Mm.
philosophies you want to impart onto your
Yeah.
next round of students?
Yeah. I think kind of what I was saying before. Like, I want people, if they take my class, to I want students that come in like at a most basic level. I want them to try something new with VR if they haven't tried it before, and like for more intermediate people that can go from start to finish, they can maybe get some cool pieces out of it for their portfolio. Because for me, like trying something new and having fun with it is the important thing, and also understanding different like understanding your own workflow and developing your taste more is also something that's like really important to me. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Heck yeah. And for final words, final thoughts, what um what would you like to tell the Riddell that started this VR journey? If you were to go back in
Mm.
time, give that Riddell some advice, what would you say?
I'd say I'd say one, get a VR headset sooner, and then two, like don't be afraid to just jump into a software and spend time with it for just a straight week so you can try everything, just press every button. That's always what I do when I like start a new game is like I see what every single button on the controller does just to see what it does. Yeah. So yeah,
That is
cool.
great. Yeah, freaking cool. Thank you so much, man. I really
Mm,
appreciate you coming out here.
mm,
And seriously, good luck with your class. It's gonna be amazing. Check it out,
cool.
everyone.
Thanks.
All right. Seriously, thank you so much, Riddell, for coming on here, talking with me today, and just telling us a little bit about your class. I'm sure it's gonna go great, and I wish you the best of luck, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for having me on. I hope people get something from like this little interview we did and hope to see some people in the class. I think it'll be fun. So
Yeah,
thanks.
absolutely. Of course. And if you guys want to check out more of Adele's work, check out the link over here, wherever we put it. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone.